Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Business Over Brews. Today, Paul and I are going to be talking about a leak from OpenAI, whether that was purposeful or not, about new AI agents and their pricing structures, where you could see pricing for an agent go from $5,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 per month to get access to these agents for businesses. Stick around. Thank you again for joining. And Paul, thank you for giving me some of your Saturday here as we enjoy some business over brews. It is coffee, it is early, so no beers today, but I do have some of my favorite mugs to share. What are you drinking today?
I got myself a like an Americano with a little bit of oat milk in
Nice.
it.
Oat milk. Sorry. You'll never
It
get me
just the
onto that.
nutty flavor with the coffee just does it, and
You,
it's
you can you can keep your nut milk all you want if
from
that's
a
what you want.
cappuccino cup.
No, I can't fault you. You're doing something that's healthier than what I'm doing too. But today's topic, we are talking about some leaked information that came out of, I guess, a board meeting from OpenAI, where Sam Altman had said that he is playing or experimenting with the idea of pricing AI agents up to $20,000 per month. Paul, right off the bat, would you pay 20 grand a month for an AI agent?
No,
Now, personally or professionally?
well, personally, for sure not. Professionally, also no.
No, I feel you. And we're so early on, it's very hard for me to fathom the same thing. I don't see myself paying that kind of money. But let's look a little bit into what Sam had to say here. He said, OpenAI agent. So this is an article that was published initially out of the information, but I don't have 300 bucks a month to pay for this. So we're just going to kind of go off of what TechCrunch has said here. But OpenAI reportedly plans to charge up to $20,000 a month for specialized AI agents. The publication reports that OpenAI intends to launch several agent products tailored to different applications, including sorting and ranking sales leads and software engineering. One, a high income knowledge worker agent, which will reportedly be priced at $2,000 a month. Another, software developer agent that could cost about $10,000 a month. And OpenAI's most expensive rumored agent, priced at the aforementioned $20,000 per month tier, which would be aiming to support PhD level research, according to the information, the publication of the information from this leaked article. So, the more that I think about something like this, I look at what AI agents are today and I go, wow, I don't see myself spending anywhere around that kind of money for an agent. But I have to start thinking out of the box. There is a difference between an agent and a GPT or that chatbot that I have been using to engage with and optimize my productivity. I mean, Paul, what do you think? I could actually see some of these gaining some traction in potentially being worth that cost to a business. What are your thoughts?
Well, you got a couple of good points, and there's one to pull apart, right? Like everything has a value to cost ratio, and that's really the question. And the question is like, what do you get for 20 grand? What can it really do, and how good is it? How reliable is it? And that's where I still have my doubts. And then there's kind of like I mean, from the very little context there, what you actually want them to do. I think there are also other problems to solve when it comes to like PhD level research. But right off the bat, like I think if I look at the way that the AI space has been developing over the last few years, it's a race to the bottom. It's a commodity space, and one of the challenges that OpenAI has had, and all of the others as well, is that it's incredibly hard to drive a profit out of AI at the moment still. And that's where, like, when I read these things, I look at it from different dimensions. The first dimension is this was found in board papers, and to the board, you want to present some kind of plan that ultimately gets you to some level of profitability, especially because they're leaking historic amounts of money, like 5 billion a year, from all of the things they do. Now, granted, OpenAI is a very unique position because of its relationship with Microsoft, right? Like they're the operating cost of AI is incredibly high. And most of the money, most of the cost goes to operating and running all of these servers. Now, Microsoft, having a big stake in OpenAI, is also the biggest customer of OpenAI, because they run it all on Azure Cloud. So there's a lot of money being washed in the dryer of in the washing machine of Microsoft OpenAI, and at the end of the day, an electricity bill needs to be paid and hardware needs to be put in place. So if you look at it from a Microsoft board level, the losses are actually not as big. If you look at it on just an OpenAI level, the losses are that big. Now, what is really so actually, in a way, you could arguably say that OpenAI is a little bit of a glorified R&D lab for an AI R&D lab for Microsoft, and that makes it puts slightly less pressure on it to put these things out there. Now, the other side of dimension of that is, if you put a $20,000 per month AI agent out there, the only way you can sustain that pricing level is either if you form a cartel or you have an absolute monopoly. Because
Hey, the cartel might not be out of the question here.
right, AI, like look at DeepSeek's R1 that came out recently, right? Like, which can do quite similar work already on a way lower operating cost. It means that others can just swoop in and do it for 10 grand and then for 5 grand, and we're back to a race to the bottom. Then the other side of the coin is it's becoming easier and easier with these open source models and the way that these protocols are opening up, being more generic, that people can start building their own stuff, and don't underestimate that. But when I may say protocol stuff, it's kind of like we'll see. I think we're going to see an evolution in all of these AI models. It's kind of like the USB-C thing, like the standardization, like that all AI tools, etc., are clicked together in this with a similar protocol, whatever APIs or other types of protocols there are. Which means you need to have only a few development skills to tie the whole thing together. And there's so much open source out there that if you're going to charge 20,000 a month, which is 240 grand a year, then you should ask yourself how much you can do with a developer and a bunch of tools that are way, way cheaper, that you have probably even more control over. So that's why I'm very skeptical about that price point and what it can do, because the competition is absolutely killing it.
You know, to unpack a couple of things you brought up, one of the things you mentioned was DeepSeek's announcement and the much lower cost model they had released, open source, that competes directly with OpenAI's latest models. There are still investigations underway about how much they may or may not have stolen from OpenAI. So maybe there were some shortcuts made, but to the point, yes, we're driving the cost down lower. It's commoditizing this technology. But the question, one thing I would have is, I believe this announcement actually came out after the whole R1, the DeepSeek announcement and scare. So was this really one of those things to help calm the board, to get them more excited about the current technology, to keep the money coming in that they're expecting to get to push their technology? I don't speak to boards often, but I do understand the idea of undercommit and overdeliver, and this seems to be the exact inverse of that. Being an insider like Sam Altman, for all we know, it is not the inverse of that. For all we know, he thinks he could charge 100 grand a month for these technologies. But,
This is true. I always find there's always a little bit of truth in every lie or in every idea. And the OpenAI operates like any Silicon Valley approach for the last 15, 20 years, which is get a bunch of usage quick and then figure out the commercialization, the monetization later. And that's what they're doing now as well. It's not always about presenting the idea to the board. When you talk to a board, it's also showing that you have ideas. Look at how long it took for even like Google to start monetizing itself before it started like understanding like, oh, these ads actually are the way for us to do it. They tried different things and probably have many more plans that have been presented to the board before they landed on the PPC model that they have, the bidding model. So I would expect that to the board, you continuously want to show that there's different avenues of finding revenue, there's different ways of testing it. And I would expect that someone as smart as Sam Altman and his team, that they come up with different ways. But who knows? Like there has been, if you look at how long it's taken us to get to self-driving cars, I think Musk already presented that in 2014 we should have had him. We were like more than 10 years down the line. But fair enough, however persistent, how many critics there are about that industry. I live in Austin. I take a driverless taxi every day.
Didn't know that. Pretty cool.
Yes, they're driving around here and it's great. And and this is the smart stuff. It's integrated in Uber. How are they monetizing it? If you get a taxi on Uber, you get an Uber X, or you can get a driverless car. So ultimately, there are avenues to explore and there are ways to get to a monetization model. There's a lot that needs to be done on the technology itself to get itself in a state where you can do it. Yeah. But also the ecosystem around AI is continuously developing. So who knows what it ultimately looks like.
Wait a minute. Do you give stars and ratings to the driverless taxis? And do they give you one?
No, they don't. And you don't have to tip them. Oh, yeah. So that is actually a really interesting thing, because that could commoditize. That could really disrupt the current. Uber itself was a disruptive proposition, right? It disrupted the transportation, the taxi industry, and now they have a driverless Uber, which then disrupts the Uber driver community. Yeah. So it's a very interesting sequence of events.
Well, that changes their business model. Not to get into that, but now who owns the vehicles? It used to be we were just a platform to put passengers with drivers and get them to where they want to go in the most optimized fashion and collect that payment. But now there's infrastructure, there's hardware, there's vehicles. Yep. That's a whole other story we should get into. But back to Sam Altman's. So there's a couple of things that I keep thinking about, right?
Can I get back to the AI? Because I did have a thought there, like about AI actually. These AI agents, the ecosystem that's starting to develop now is an ecosystem of AI tools. Mm-hmm. So an AI agent, right, is an autonomous, it's basically an AI that can make decisions, that gets a task handed to it, then it will pull itself, like it has a whole toolbox of tools at its disposal. Sometimes these tools are there out of the box, but recently with the introduction of MCP, it's also possible for these AI agents to call on external tools. And so there is a world starting to develop of external tools that an AI agent could tap into and that you can hook up with your AI agent. Yeah. So if you are going to charge $20,000 for an AI agent, you would expect that this agent has all the tools available. I can see much more of a ecosystem developing where you have an AI agent that is more like a skeleton basic AI agent, maybe already that is more like a skeleton industries or certain professions, but you can add different tools to that AI agent, depending on your specific need. So that level of customization. And that also means that you will not be paying $20,000 directly for just this one AI agent. You'll probably be paying like a few grand, and the rest of it goes to these individual tools, whether they are from OpenAI or from external companies that become the ecosystem around AI agent tech.
No, yeah. And so, I mean, when we're talking about these ecosystems, we start thinking about the laws of scale that sit with these. And so if I were to hire or buy one of these $10,000 a month software engineers or these $250,000 a year PhD level folks, is there a ratio of headcount that I am removing, or is it one for everything? So for example, I might need a team of 20 developers for the projects that I'm currently running. Where does that one AI software engineer hit its boundaries? Is it token based, and meaning I've asked it to code too much and then it is done? Then I kind of treat the tokens almost as if those are working hours during a day. So I know that people talk about, hey, you can have an AI agent that doesn't get sick and doesn't take vacations and doesn't need to sign off at 5 o'clock and go drive the kids to school and all that stuff. So when you start talking about that, does that mean that this agent is on 24/7, cranking through as much as it can, and then there is a amount of bandwidth that it can handle at a given time? Do I hire multiples of these if I'm running different types of projects, or do I hire multiples if I need specific experiences, like one is good at coding, one is good at UI? Or, again, is it one and I just upgrade the one that I have if I need to, and it can then handle more and understand different languages and support different technologies? And then the other side to it too is I feel like a lot of what holds people back when they're building projects comes down to collaboration, differences in opinions or approval processes. What technologies are we approved to use? How can we move forward in these directions? These AI tools, just like microprocessors, will make these discussions in these make these decisions in fractions of seconds based on the governance that they're ruled under. You can do this, you can't do that. So then there is no need for collaboration. Everyone knows the direction to go and how to execute. So it makes you wonder what kind of lag time is actually going to happen when you have to make those types of decisions when you're building infrastructure or building technologies. Is it just one? Or do I need one of these agents for every 5 engineers or 10 PhD folks? I really don't know where it goes.
I think it will be very largely dependent on what you're trying to build. And the limitation of these AI agents is always going to be skills and responsibility. So they, right now already, like I think one of the most practical ways to keep track of like anything AI is try to solve a problem end to end with AI. Try to use AI for every single thing when you try to solve a problem. Build a website and try to do it all with AI. And you'll very quickly see that AI is brilliant at certain parts of all the tasks that you need to do. And some things it lacks. And in some things it requires you as a human to step in saying like, I don't like that, I like that. There's a lot of prompting, there's a lot of decisioning, and especially hitting that publish button, you're kind of be like, let me give this a quick look, like quality
I hope.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Well, then it also comes down to how much revenue can I generate going quick to market versus how much am I going to get fined? If it's a 10-to-1 ratio, many businesses will say, I'll take the fine. It's more of a fee.
Exactly. And there's decisions that need to be made. When you put technology into the world, it's not just about building it. It's also about maintaining it. It's about putting it in production, keeping it in production, testing new features, deciding what features to build, what makes sense, analyzing all of that. AI is incredibly helpful in all of that stuff, but you still need developers for that. AI is getting better and better at debugging its own code, but you do want to have developers looking into that. You want people to really safeguard that. And so I do think it's going to, the time to market or the time to development is going to be so much faster, which is, it's crazy. What it also does already with these agents out there is that people who are more product people, like myself, I'm a product designer. I can go pretty deep already into designing actual software and actually building it using some tools that are out there, using maybe like Copilot or like Cursor. I can do stuff that I was never able to do before, and then hand that over to an engineer who also has AI tools for the skills that they need. So you need a smaller team. You can get much faster with fewer people, and that's all going to help. And these AI agents sit in the middle. The increase in skill that they have, and the more you start to trust them, the more it's going to speed you up. However, if that's a 20K per month, I don't know, because I can see anyone swooping in, doing something open source, and then doing it for $100 a month for everyone.
Sure. So, and here's, kind of on the, from the parental side of things, as I start planning about what I'm doing today and now, it makes me wonder, do I continue to contribute to a 529 account? And what I mean by that is this the end of higher education? And I don't mean to be like the doom and gloom, like, oh no, this is going to disrupt everything. People getting PhDs, they typically do it because they are hyper-focused and interested on that solution. But people coming out of college oftentimes do not fully understand what they want to go into. So they will choose loose focuses for them to study when they go into college for their undergrad and graduates. But if we're going to be producing these tools that can do the jobs of PhDs when it comes to research, and they're going to probably do it better than people, why would we go to school to learn certain things? Like, we're going to need doctors, we're going to need plumbers, people that do physical things, as far as I know, at least until they make humanoid robots. But if my son turned to me and said, I want to go and be a Hollywood producer and I want to get into sound engineering, which I initially did, I'm going to say, buddy, that's going to be on your own time. We have to figure out something that is going to be AI protected or something related to that, something where you are going to have a decent future with that. Because if those jobs are all gone, even if these schools are still around, we're going to see a complete disruption of people going to these schools just because of the fear of the future job market not being there.
Well, I think again, it's more nuanced. I don't like to look at it in too much doom and gloom. But so, for example, this morning there was a great article in the Guardian about a company called AlphaFold. Don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No, I haven't.
It's a company that uses AI to and bring into picture the structure of a protein, and it's used largely in medical research. So if you understand the protein structure of a virus or a bacteria, you can actually be much quicker to develop medicine and vaccines and the likes. So this has revolutionized PhD work coming out of universities. Now, here's a little bit of a thing that's maybe just me. I am definitely a big fan of the academics, and I am an academic. But my criticism of academics has always been that academics seem to write a lot of studies for other academics. And
Yep.
I find that their knowledge really rarely makes it into the real world where it could be very, very useful. I see companies, even like SMBs, doing all kinds of great studies based on all the data they collect, and they pretty much, some marketing person sometimes puts a finding out there that a PhD student would have done in a super long and his very complex written essay or thesis. So I like the fact that PhD studies, the results that come out, I like it to be less about the method used, but the method needs to be described, but more about the application and how we can actually use it. And if AI helps us with these massive shortcuts, where instead of like that, our Guardian article is great because it explains how they normally take a month, or even like they've never even managed to put together the structure of a protein in a whole PhD study, which sometimes is 2, 3, 4 years long, right? This AlphaFold does it in 5 minutes, right?
Okay.
So now a PhD study is not about how can we get a protein structure into in the picture, how can we analyze it? It's actually like my PhD starts with click. Let me get the protein structure for this thing I just found, and then do the analysis. So we're getting miles ahead, but it still requires humans to say, like, I'm going to research that thing, and I'm going to need an AI to do that, and then I'm going to draw conclusions out and get creative to see if I can reach my objective. And AI is still very helpful in all of that. But I think it's still a human. Back to what I said in last episode, it's less Terminator, it's more Iron Man.
Yep. Nope. It's a great comparison. Paul, thank you so much for joining. I'd love to know from you out there, what are your thoughts about these high-end agents costing $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a month for software development or PhD style research? Is that something that would interest you? Do you see that actually making it in part of the pricing, or do you think that this is just pie in the sky ideas to get excitement and awareness generated to fund more future projects? Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Paul, thanks for joining today.
Thank you very much.